okay, so this is going to be, this is going to be easy. And he says, oh no, this is going to be really hard for me because I don't do well in the heat. I get heat stroke really easy. I'm like, what on earth are you doing here?
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of GottaRunRacing podcast.
Hello, hello.
How you been?
Not too bad.
Good. What is happening in the world of GottaRunRacing?
Well, my friend, we have a race in just over a month's time. Time is flying by.
The Lost Treasure Trail Race coming up May 14.
In the hills of Mummer.
I still have no idea where you guys are running.
Don't tell them that.
We'll figure it out.
We'll figure it out. And we got our swag item today. If you want to know what it is, head over to GottaRunRacing.com.
Cool. And who is on? Oh, we have a double feature today.
Yes, first double feature.
Of Marathon Des Sables.
Which just happened in Morocco.
Yeah, our first part to this podcast is going to be with...
Kevin MacKinnon.
Who is?
He has worked as the communications director of Ironman North America, the editor-in-chief of Ironman, and the founding editor of Triathlon Magazine Canada. And he was there to cover the race as one of 65 journalists.
Cool.
Yeah, can't wait to hear what he has to say.
So we're going to hear his take on the behind scenes of Marathon des Sables.
Right. And in front of the scene
yes,
is Caroline Wiebe from Winnipeg, who participated in the race.
Yeah, it took her, well, I want to say 55 hours.
55 hours.
So she has a lot to say about her journey through the desert.
For 6 days.
Yeah. So
6 nights.
Yeah. So this is going to be a long one. We're going to have 2 parts. So
take a break if you need to.
Yeah, take a break and come back to it. Come back to it. And if this is your first time, cool.
Welcome.
Yeah, welcome. You can always do us a favor and leave a review or just tap that subscribe button there on YouTube.
It really does help us out.
Yeah.
The more that we get shared out there in the land,
the more that keeps us going.
The better content we can bring you. So please do us that.
And without further ado, here's Kevin.
Welcome to the podcast, Kevin MacKinnon.
Hello, nice to meet you guys.
So a listener of ours, and a friend, and a client of yours is the one who suggested that we chat today because she told us that you had just gotten back from Marathon des Sables.
Yeah, I was actually, that was part of a crazy 3-week stint. I was announcing down at Clash Miami, so at, what is it called now? Homestead Miami Speedway. So a triathlon event there, and then traveled over to the Canary Islands, Ironman 70.3 Lanzarote. So I was announcing at that race, and then went from there, sort of the world's longest. It took me 2 days basically to travel 125K. So I went from 125 kilometers off the coast of Morocco all the way back up to Paris, and then Paris down to back down to Morocco again to cover the Marathon des Sables.
Yeah, the Canaries aren't that far from Morocco, so that is
quite
a detour.
Yes, I absolutely would have been better to just get in a boat and try and row my way over for sure.
I was going to say, can't you just swim that?
Did you have to apply to be part of the coverage for Marathon des Sables?
So they reached out to me last fall and asked if I would be interested in coming in and sort of covering the event. And so I said, yeah, sure, would love to. And then it was sort of bizarre. I didn't hear from them for ages, and then I reached out and they said, oh, yeah, we'll check with the organizers and see if they're interested in having you. I'm like, huh. Okay, I thought I'd already got that sorted out. And then they sort of asked me what stories and coverage I was planning on doing, and then just included me on. So I had a choice of doing 2 different trips. Either what they call the short short media trip or the long one, which is covering the full event. I thought taking the short one, I would have at least 2 days of racing that I would get to cover, but learned the hard way that I only would get to see 1 day of the actual racing, which was a little bit of a bummer. But it was still an amazing experience. But they said, well, you fly in Friday and then you fly back Monday night. You'll get in at like 10:30 to Paris Monday night. And so I thought, perfect. We'll watch the second day of racing, jump on a plane, fly home. How hard can it be? Well, by the time we got to where we were for the second bivouac of the race, so after that first stage, to get to the airport where we had to fly out of, Korzazat, I guess is what I have no idea how to pronounce it. It was a 5.5 hour drive through the desert. So we left at 3 a.m. on Monday morning, drove through the desert, pitch black. The two drivers, not a GPS in sight. So like at 3:45, they were completely lost. We came up to the side of this mountain and then, stopped, and one driver got out and started screaming at the other driver. And, there was myself and 4 other journalists from France in the cars kind of going, this is not good. And so they ended up driving back, back sort of the way they had came, found this little hut in the middle of the Sahara, banged on this poor guy's door at 4 a.m. And got directions as to where they should be going. And eventually we got out. So got to Korzazat, made the flight, made the check-in for the flight by 5 minutes. Did 2 flights to get to Casablanca, waited 6 hours in Casablanca, did a 4-hour flight back to Paris. And so it was 21 hours of travel before I finally made it back to Paris. So,
oh my gosh.
So next time, if I go back, which I'm hoping that I'll do next year, definitely the long trip. It would be much easier covering it all for 8 days than doing that nutty trip on the way back.
Now, I understand you were part of a team of about 65 journalists. Just to put that into perspective, how many journalists would be, for example, at Kona?
Whoa. So Ironman World Championship, yeah. So the reason I am struggling with the answer to that is journalists, quote unquote, like the media, it has really stretched. So you see a lot of people with accreditation at the Ironman World Championship who aren't covering anything for a magazine or website or anything like that. They're people's managers, they're people's social media types and all of that kind of stuff. So there's probably like 150 people accredited at the Ironman World Championship,
right.
But there's certainly not that many journalists.
Right.
And there was a little bit of that at the Tour de Sable, or the Marathon des Sables, sorry. But mostly, most of the people there, so there were 6 of us on this short trip, and like those guys all for sure, all with, pretty major publications, mostly in France. Mm-hmm. I met a couple of guys who were covering stuff. So there were 1, 2, 3, there were probably 4 or 5 folks covering for different British publications.
Wow.
And then so a lot of the people who actually, quote unquote, are there doing coverage are people who work for magazines but are actually doing the race. So, a good friend of mine works for a website. He's done the race 8 times. So he walked into the media room and looked at me and what are you doing here? And I'm like, what are you doing here? He's based in California now. He's actually originally from France, but based in California. And so, there's probably, another 15 folks like that who are kind of doing the race. So
Interesting. I guess the internationalism of the competitors lend itself to the reason why there's so many different people represented from around the world covering it.
Yeah, certainly. It was really interesting, and we noticed this here in terms of our coverage with Triathlon Magazine Canada and Canadian Running Magazine. Not nearly as big a deal in North America as it is over in France and Europe. Certainly, excuse me, I could not believe just the coverage that they do themselves. So they have two helicopters for the event. One is purely for media, and the other one is a medical one for emergencies. And then just tons of cameramen around. So big television show that they put together for the event themselves. And so there's lots of stuff that they do. It just doesn't get picked up a whole lot in North America.
It's been a big deal in France for a long time. This is not something new that they're.
Yeah, no, it mind blowing in terms of just the difference. And this was, did I get this right? Oh, I can just look right here. The 36th edition of the race. So you guys probably know how everything started. 1984, Patrick Bauer did his own 350 kilometer jaunt through the Sahara Desert. I can't remember if it was 12 or 14 days that he did that all. Had a monstrous backpack. I'm trying to remember how much it was. It was like 35 kilograms or something, but completely self-supported. And he finished that and decided that everyone needed to have an opportunity to have that experience. And 2 years later, managed to start the first event. So 86 was the first one, and I believe they had 23 people for that first one, and then it has just steadily grown, and they've had up to 1,500, I think, is the largest race that they've had. So just amazing how popular and all that they have done with it. And so I was one of the only journalists who didn't do the first day of racing. So what they allow the folks, the journalists, to do is to do that first stage. So I think it was 30.8 kilometers. But if you were doing that, then you had to go and sleep with all of the athletes. So so their tents. I did notice that some of the folks managed to figure out ways they got rocks and managed to close those tents down. The Canadians, I don't think, were quite as innovative on that front. And the first night, that Friday night, at about 3 a.m, the wind picked up like crazy. And it went down to about 5 degrees, but it was really cold. I really felt for all of the athletes, because we had a little bit more cover, but not a whole lot. Like it was not a comfortable night. Not that I'm trying to complain compared to what those guys went through, I really felt for them that first night. It's as you probably learned from Carolyn. Quite the endeavor you're taking on when you're taking on that event.
Take us through your day. Were you out on the course? How did you experience this whole day that you were there?
Yeah, so race day was really was pretty awesome. I was supposed to be in a truck, or I described it as a Jeep. When I showed pictures to my wife, she's like, "That's just like an SUV. What are you talking about?" So it was an all-wheel drive car, and I was supposed to be in one by myself, but then, race morning, a bunch of the cars didn't show up, and so I ended up in with another journalist. And so how did it work? Yeah, we basically met up with our driver. He didn't speak French very well, so she couldn't really help, and he didn't speak English really well, so I couldn't really help. So it was a little bit of back and forth trying to figure out the how to have that conversation. But we sort of got it all organized and figured out where we were going to meet him. I had this vision of getting a long shot from the start. So, I had 200, 600, I had a 200, 600 millimeter lens with me that I really wanted to get way out there and get them as they were coming up towards me. So kind of negotiated with the driver where I was going to meet him and got out there, got most of the start shots that I wanted. There was a guy who's was doing fundraising who was dressed up as Spider-Man, who decided he wanted lots of camera time. So he ran with the leaders all the way through that initial start, and we, all of the camera people were like, "Oh, come on, like, get what you get the idea." But this is our one chance to get, the shot of these leaders and stuff. So a little frustrating on that, but we were able to figure that out. And then we got out on the course, so you just kind of drove along and picked different places to take photos, and then I would say there was, I want to say about 15K in was when we hit the first of the really bad sand stuff, and it was nuts, like just you think you know how to drive, right? And you think you know how to drive through snow, like, oh yeah, Canadians, we know how to drive through snow and all this kind of stuff. Watching this guy who was driving us get through this sand, I was like, yeah, there's no snow that we have in Ontario that would stop this dude. But even then, he got totally socked in a couple of times. So in that first bout of sand, we ended up having to push him out once, then having to try and push out another car. In the end, we couldn't get him out. We ended up having to tow this other guy out. And then when he got stuck again, it was crazy. Anyway, there were 4 different vehicles that got completely just totally socked in the sand. So it was quite the experience just getting through all that. But yeah, just amazing, sort of getting the photos. And then we realized one of the vehicles that we were trying to get out, they were supposed to try and get to the finish line, and we just realized at that point there's no way we're beating the leaders to get everyone out there. So I just resigned myself to getting some cool shots, and that's what I did. So. And then just cruised on into the finish line, got some finish line shots, interviewed the women's winner. Yeah, great story. This is awful that I can't think of her name right now. She was doing her first series race or tour like this. She'd done a bunch of 35 and 50K ultras, okay, and ultra trail events before, but had never done anything like this. Longest she'd ever raced was 50K, and she was just unbelievable. So got to interview her on the first day, and she ended up just dominating the race. So got in, sort of edited my photos, wrote up a couple of stories, and yeah, called it a day. But I guess I finished probably 9 or 10 at night, and then tried to get some sleep because we had our 3 a.m. So 2:45, we all set our alarms, and everyone woke up and got rolling for our insane trip home.
Wow. Did you, I guess it's hard because you were really only covering the one day, but did you talk to anybody who had just a crazy story about getting there or what it took to get to the start line? And
one of the stories, and I wrote this up on our magazine, or on the Triathlon Magazine Canada website, and I'm just looking it up now. This guy Yvon, where is this guy?
Leroux?
Yvonne Leroux. Unbelievable. Yeah, there we go. Yvonne Leroux. So that was the funniest interview. Somebody sort of pulled me aside. One of the Canadians pulled me aside and said, because I had talked to them all. So on the the Friday night, when we first all got there, I rolled on over to the Canadian tent, and I just kind of said, "Hey, I'm with Triathlon Magazine Canada and Canadian Running Magazine. Want to chat with you guys. Like, what on earth are you doing here?" And Carolyn Weed was, and yeah, it was like really cool. Like Carolyn's story was really cool. I believe is Edmonton or Winnipeg or Edmonton.
Winnipeg, yeah.
Winnipeg. And she had wanted to do it for her 50th birthday, and COVID got in the way, and so she ended up, 51, so close enough. And there was another woman from out east. I can't think of her name right now, but she was awesome to chat with away as well. Oh, Joanne Theriault. I fear Joanne didn't end up finishing, which was a little bit of a bummer. But she was awesome. Like, she kind of pulled me aside and said, "You need to talk to Yvonne. He's just being really modest. This guy has done, some really crazy races over the years." And so I went over and talked to her. I said, "Hey, Yvonne, would you be okay to chat for a few minutes?" So it turns out this dude, like, he had done the Trans-Pyrenea. I think you guys might know about this. That's 900 kilometers, 55,000 meters of elevation gain. And so he'd done that race, and he's like, "Oh yeah, this is a piece of cake. You get to sleep in quote unquote a tent every night. And I get to hang out with all of these people." When I did the Trans-Pyrenea, I was just like, you run for 3 or 4 days, and then you sleep when you just can't keep going anymore, and you lie down in a field. Like he said, one night there was a bunch of sheep out there. I thought, yeah, you know what, I'll just sleep here. And I said, "Okay, so this is going to be, easy." And he says, "Oh no, this is going to be really hard for me because I don't do well in the heat. I get heat stroke really easy." I'm like, "What on earth are you doing here?" And he said, "Well, I really wanted to challenge myself to this event." And I said, "Okay, well, how did you prepare?" And he said, "Well, I got myself an industrial heater, and I converted a room in my house, and I put a treadmill in there." And he said, "I would get it up to 55 degrees Celsius. And I ran." And he said, "In January when I started, I couldn't go longer than 20 minutes. I did 20 minutes and then I pretty much collapsed." And he said, 3 weeks ago, I did 4.5 hours on this thing at 55 degrees. So I was like, yeah. So Yvonne reached out to me just a few days ago, actually. Because his goal had been to try and finish in the top 100. So I was, I was wrestling with, should I talk about or write another story about Yvonne? What should I do? Because, I can't remember where he finished, but it wasn't in the top 100. And he reached out to me and he said, "I got into this and realized that the spirit and camaraderie of the event was what this was all about. So I ended up running the whole thing with one of my friends, had a great time, didn't run into any issues, was the experience of a lifetime." And I thought, "Oh, that is just awesome." So that was pretty cool to see. And then, Carolyn, another great story. She really only got into all of this stuff in the last 8 years or so. And so I'm sure you had a great chat with her as well.
We did. And it was definitely about the experience for her. She had to pinch herself, I think, every time she started the stage each morning.
She just couldn't believe that she was actually there, which is amazing.
My friend, the friend that I was talking about who's in California, he was like, "Kevin, you got to come back next year and do this." And I said, "Come on, I've got 2 knee surgeries. Yeah, this is not happening." He said, Kevin, all you need to do is walk faster than a camel, and you can do this. And it's true, right? Like they have this, the quote unquote sag wagon are these two camels that go on through. And so as long as you can do 3K an hour, you can finish the Marathon des Sables, but you've just got to keep walking and keep hitting those 20-minute Ks and just keep doing that all day. But that long stage must just be brutal, right? Like you've got 30 this year, because it was 86K, you had 35 hours to finish the long stage. But that's a long haul. If you're doing 3K an hour, getting through that, it's, you're still banging on 30 hours if you're doing that 3K an hour. So
you finish through the night, and then you have to start the next day, maybe just
to do a marathon.
To do the marathon the very next day. Yeah, that's something.
Well, yeah. So but it was truly amazing to see the elite folks who are doing this. I'm just trying to think. Where can I find this now? The first two guys. So Anna Komet, there we go, was the women's winner.
Right.
But the men's winners, so you've got Rashid El Morabiti and his younger brother Mohammed.
Yeah.
Rashid won it for the 9th time this year. And like these guys, it is nuts how fast they're going. So they did that first stage. I believe it was just over 3 hours for 30.8K. And so I have a shot, and this isn't even of the leaders. I've got a shot of somebody who's in 20th place. And there's one of the vehicles trying to get out of the sand and shooting sand up close to where this guy is. The Morabiti brothers are long gone. They're moving faster than the vehicles seem to at times. Just frightening how quickly. And, at the end of the day, 66 seconds separated the first two. So incredible. Muhammad, it must be, I can't imagine what the dinner conversation is like at that family table. You couldn't let me win just once.
Exactly.
You can't, you have to keep winning 9 times. So, Muhammad for a second for the 5th year in a row. But boy, he sure took it to his big brother this year. So
I'd love to see those two come and do around the bay.
Was this your first ultra marathon that you covered?
Yes. I really haven't. So I've done, all kinds of triathlon events all around the world. And, back when I worked for Ironman, I guess I probably still have been to more Ironman races than probably anyone else on the planet. I would cover anywhere from 15 to 20 Ironman races a year. From 98 through 2015. So racked up a whole pile of Ironman events, but not much in terms of ultra running. So this was just an incredible experience for me.
What do you like about announcing? What is the draw for you? Just being around the sport, I assume, and seeing competitors rise up through the ranks?
Yeah, and it's so it is, just being able to be part of that experience for people. And so, especially in Ironman, I just finished a feature for the May issue of the magazine for the Marathon des Sables, when an Ironman isn't enough. And we're sort of wondering if we're going to start get some flack from the triathletes around that. But I always tell people, and especially with the Ironman World Championship in Hawaii, you find out more about yourself on that day in Kona than you do in just about the rest of your life. And being able to share that experience with people is really, pretty amazing. And to be able to hopefully make it that much more special and be able to celebrate it. I just have fun with it all, right? And I always say, if I'm not having fun, then there's something wrong, and it means that everyone else isn't going to be getting the experience that they need. So, so it's that's always been the draw.
Well, thanks so much for your time today. We really appreciate it. It's neat getting a behind the scenes look at one of these crazy events.
Yeah.
Yes, well, very nice to chat with you guys.
And hopefully we'll see you in person one day at one of the Ironmans, because I know this guy wants to go back and redeem himself.
Sounds good. I like that idea.
All right, Kevin. Thanks again.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Bye.
Do you think he's going back for the full race edition at some point?
Oh, yeah. He's got to get his, the full experience.
Well, it's just like the runners. You do the race for the first time, and you want to go back to improve, because with a race like that, there's so many ways that you can improve your experience, your time, what you pack to eat.
Well, perhaps he'll go back to cover the whole race, and then the following year he'll go back and run the race, a different perspective.
There you go. What better way to write about it when you actually run it?
Yeah.
I think that's probably why so many journalists do that.
Yeah, he definitely has an interesting career, and I'm sure you must have read one of his articles by picking up
Oh, 100%.
all the magazines. You just don't realize that,
That was Kevin.
that was Kevin.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
If you'd like to hear the extended version of our chat with Kevin, check out our podcast channel at GottaRunRacing.
Cheers.